Sarah Havens, thank you for joining me today in Legal Latitudes. I'm excited to interview you, get to know you a little better, although we've been spending some time together. So, why don't we get to the beginning of all? You're originally from LA, right?
Born and raised in the San Fernando Valley.
San Fernando Valley. Okay. And then,
Like, totally.
big family?
No, small family.
Okay.
I have two little sisters. They're twins.
All right. And growing up there, did you know that you were going to be a lawyer?
No, absolutely not. When I was in third grade, I wanted to be a professional dancer.
Okay.
And like Paula Abdul was my idol.
Nice.
And it didn't really occur to me that like that was even an option.
Mm-hmm.
Although I always argued a lot, so people make the jokes, right? But
Okay.
it definitely wasn't something that I thought, oh, when I grow up, I'm going to be a lawyer.
Okay, so you were wanted to be a professional dancer, and that seemed like a more likable option, especially living in LA, right?
Well, yeah, I
Or you-
mean, the famous dancers of all times come out of there, like Britney
right.
Spears. Well, she was after my time, but
Mhm.
it was Paula Abdul was real big then.
Right.
Jennifer Lopez was on In Living Color.
Okay.
Janet Jackson was super huge. And that type of dancing, which we now refer to hip hop,
Right.
it wasn't really called hip hop then. It was called like modern jazz or all these things. And my mom, who was born and raised in Hollywood, the industry, her dad was a director, and both of her parents were actually professional dancers long before, like in the 20s.
Okay.
She grew up in Hollywood, and she said that that type of dancing would be going out of style, and so it wouldn't be a good career.
Okay.
It did not go out of style.
Okay, but you made other decision anyway. And in between becoming a lawyer and being projecting yourself to become a dancer, you had some time there where you were doing extreme sports
So that was after high school.
after high school.
Right. So I had a passion for dance, and that kind of fizzled with my parents' finances and my mom's desire to not have me schlepping around to interviews, as she would say, as many
Okay.
of my friends were going to auditions all the time. So when I was in high school, I got a rented snowboard one day, and I went to, I think it was Big Bear, and I fell in love with the park. And then I would tell people that I get to dance, but on rails and
Right.
jumps. So I could spin, but in the air. So I was still dancing to me.
So what year was this?
This was 2016, 17.
Okay.
This is the year before high school, and then my year of high school, I was going as much as I could.
Okay, okay. And then you start snowboarding and doing rails, doing jumps. And did you get into competitions? What was your approach there with when it comes to snowboard? Free rider, more of like a contest fan, park rat, how they call it, right?
I was a park rat. I still am a park rat.
Okay,
My son's a park rat, or he better be a park rat. He skis in the park.
yeah,
So
snow park, right?
I started competing in USASA in my freshman year of college, which was San Diego State.
Okay,
Obviously, that was a lot, but it really kept me out of trouble because during the week I was studying really hard so I can go train up at Big Bear during the weekends. And then when that season ended, I decided I wanted to move up to Tahoe. There was a community college there. So I went back and forth for a couple years, going to community college and riding during the winter, the spring,
right.
and I would go to San Diego State for the fall semester and summer school.
Okay, and when is it that you decide? Okay, I am done with snowboarding. Was it an injury, or when is it that you decide to switch paths and become a lawyer?
When I was at a competition,
Okay,
and the girl who won doing a frontside seven on a
Okay.
jump that I was struggling to
that's-
clear.
right.
And years prior, I had taught that girl who was, I think, 16.
Do you remember the name of that girl? Because like a front seven, it's a
It was a
pretty-
new trick back then, yeah.
Okay.
It was like women
It just sounds to me like this girl is like one of the best snowboarders.
women were starting to do sevens then.
Yeah.
This
Okay.
was probably the late 2000s.
Okay.
So I had taught her at a Roxy camp, the same
Okay.
girl who was probably 15 then,
Yeah, yeah.
14. I had taught her frontside fives.
Mhm.
And then like 2 years later, the 16-year-olds were like killing it. So it was cool was really awesome to see the progression of the
Right.
women's sports.
Hmm.
And when 16-year-olds were just coming, and now if you look at the progression, like Jamie Anderson, best snowboarder in the world,
Right.
I grew up, she was yay high, and we
Right.
would train together, and watching where the sport has come
Hmm.
has it's just been great to be a part of that.
Right. So then you see this lady doing a 720, and you're like, okay, I'm
I
done.
wouldn't call her lady. She was
The
probably 15 or 16.
Oh, okay, okay. So this little girl, this young girl doing a 720, and you're like, I'm done with this sport.
No, I wasn't done with the sport. I just felt that it was ready. I felt that I had passed the torch and it was ready for me to start my next adventure.
Right.
I was never done with the sport. I was just done with it as a competitive, as a competitive
Yeah.
thing. And really, the love had died once I was doing it so competitively,
Hmm.
because you're under the microscope 24/7. It's
Hmm.
not like now where you can go film with your phone and you can, try the labs that these plaintiff lawyers do, where
Right.
you get to get up in the lab and fall and get up in the lab and fall and
Hmm.
try all this stuff. Only Shaun White had that at the time.
Right.
He had his own private park where he could go train, no one would see him, and then he would show up and he would stomp the craziest trick
Right.
nobody's seen.
Hmm.
That kids now have that. We
Right.
didn't have that.
Hmm.
So anytime I was learning a new trick, I was in the park, everyone was there. There was no lab to practice
Hmm.
without looking stupid.
Right. Right. And it's interesting because now you're a trial lawyer, right? And we'll talk about that transition, but it's the muscle memory that other lawyers don't need to develop as much as trial lawyers when it comes to standing there, doing, a cross examination, being prepared for when it was snowboarding, it was like a jump on the middle of the slope that you had to be prepared, like your legs needed to, you know, kind of like act like a shock and absorb the impact. You were learning these things. Now you're learning how to deal with an expert giving you an answer that you're not expecting and how to get on your feet, right? So to me, I also grew up doing extreme
I know you
sports,
did.
and I was doing competitively. I was doing snowboarding too,
When I saw that
and
one video,
you
the
saw
two
it,
second shot that
right?
I think Dan Ambrose posted, but I could tell, when people know, right?
Right.
Like, and you were
Oh yeah,
doing
when I was
some
snowboarding
little,
in Tahoe, yeah, it was
yes,
like a 180
you
coming
just
from
did
a
some little jibs.
right, right,
And
right.
I was like, he knows how to ride.
Yeah. So yeah, I grew up snowboarding. I learned when I was 10 years
You can
old,
tell the
and
way people walk, the way people dress, the way people act, the way people ride, like
mhm.
your style, your demeanor. You don't have like your gloves don't have like the dangly thing.
Right,
And,
right.
like, when people know what they're doing, you can
Okay,
just tell. And
okay.
I was like, oh, he rides park.
Yeah, yeah, but like then it's like you're either one of the top snowboarders in the world, which
Right,
I was not, or you just decide to do something else, and then what fulfills you and gives you somewhat the same adrenaline,
right,
among other things, right? Because what we do has that adrenaline component, but then also has like we're making like change in people's lives. So
right.
fast forward for you, you're snowboarding and then like you go all the way to 2024, 2025, president elect for Consumer Attorneys of San Diego, right? When is it that you decide to become a lawyer first?
So I was a philosophy undergrad.
Okay.
So that kind of, I
Yeah.
loved philosophy. I loved the logic
Hmm.
part.
Yep.
I've always kind of thought my brain always worked in that way. Yet it's kind of all over the place. So there's the creativeness
Right.
of that. So I was always oddly good at math, but I drew to, you know, the art sort of
Hmm.
more. So it was an interesting combo about how that came to be. But it just seemed like it was the right thing. When I made the decision, I was concerned that I would do the same thing I did with snowboarding. I fell in love with it. I started competing. I wouldn't say, I never cracked under pressure, but I fell out of love with it
Right.
once it became a job,
Yeah.
right? We love doing our work, but when
Right.
it's something that you need to do, it's something that you have to show up, that you
Right.
need to do this. I fell out. I mean, I quit essentially. My
Hmm.
husband had two horrible injuries that ruined his career.
He was
And
also a snowboarder.
he was a free skier. He was a pro skier.
Oh wow.
And so he's at home nursing, another knee surgery, and I'm out there like not pursuing the passion that was taken from him.
Right.
And I think that was difficult for him to watch because I still could have done it. And once I gave that up and stopped trying to film and do contests and be the best, I killed it. Like I learned all 4 5s that season.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Like
And
it was the pressure weighing on you.
I think that's what it was. And I was concerned that that would happen with law. I was concerned that I was so excited and I would love it. And I'll tell you why it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have a lab. I can go fall on my face. I can go practice. I found a community that let me be that
Right.
and let you practice, let me fall, let me fail. And I didn't feel like people were going to be like, well, Sarah's stupid. She doesn't know what she's
Right.
doing. And with snowboarding, if you're on the chairlift, I'm sure you probably did it
Right.
too.
Right.
You would see,
Yeah.
like pterodactyls, and I'd be like, she fell doing a 3.
Right. Everybody watching. I remember we had a jump
And you
in
compare yourself,
Chile. They call it the Hollywood jump because it was right under the chairlift, and it was like you either become famous or
Right.
infamous.
So that jump, we have that at Mammoth because I
Right.
lived in Mammoth for many years.
Mhm.
That's the bottom main jump.
Okay.
It's the Hollywood jump. Have
Okay.
you been to Mammoth?
Maybe they name it that way after Mammoth. I've been to Mammoth. Yeah.
That we have that jump at Mammoth.
Okay.
And Main Park. Main
Yeah.
Park is right over it. So like you're being watched all
Right.
the time and you're getting
Yeah.
filmed. And filming then, you can't film and throw it away. Like if somebody's bringing out, we would hear going over jumps, you're hearing click, 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 click.
Right. Right. Right.
Like it was filming.
Yeah, yeah. So okay, so now you have the same pressure, but it's more welcoming the community and the because there is always a pressure, right? When you're in trial, that's like the pinnacle of pressure. Or maybe when you're presenting at a conference, which you have been doing often. But in practicing, you don't get injured or get embarrassed as you would in snowboarding. So it's a little bit more welcoming
Well,
in that sense, right?
I would say the stakes are much higher when it
Right.
comes to doing trial work.
Yeah, yeah, for
So
sure.
really, it's much more terrifying.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lose. I'm not going to,
Hmm.
break something. And I'll tell you, as an athlete, when you're injured, and I luckily never got injured, but I'll tell you, I know from everyone who has, when you're injured, you don't think, oh, that hurts. You think, oh my God, I
Yeah.
can't
What?
ride.
Right.
You think, oh my God, how am I going to ride? Like,
Mhm.
I can't, I have a contest, I have this, I have that. You're not thinking about the pain. You're thinking about your inability to do your passion.
Right. Right. Like how long this injury is gonna take me
How
away
long-
from what I like to do.
Exactly.
That's the thought. As soon as you think you have an injury, that's the first thought. At least for me, and I assume for everyone who likes sports, right?
And
Yeah.
so many times you see in our cases where somebody's maybe riding a motorcycle or they're doing something perceived to be dangerous by the jury and they get injured doing what they love.
Mhm.
And many people will say something like, well, that'll teach him never to do X again. And I'm like, are you kidding me? That person's going to get right back and do that up as soon as they can.
Right. Right.
So I always found that interesting.
Yeah. No, it is, and it's awesome that we've been talking about trying a case together, and we're trying to work on that, right? To co-counsel and be in court together, and that we have this background. I never made the connection that about like this. Maybe you did. I just didn't. And the adrenaline of being in front of people, that really feels like you're dropping into something. Like you're like, okay, it's your turn to give your closing, your opening, whatever. It's like, okay, I'm all in, and you're somewhat nervous before you've been preparing. You stand up and you're gonna do the best you can, right?
And you're practicing.
And you're practicing.
So people always ask me, it must be totally different from going to being a pro snowboarder, slopestyle, to being a trialer. And I'm like, no, it's exactly the same. Like that feeling of being on the top of your run, about to drop in, you're visualizing, you're going over and over again in your head, the tricks that you're going to stomp and how you're going to do it.
Right.
And you're just thinking it over and over again, and your nerves are crazy, and you're totally terrified and petrified and thinking, why do I do this to myself? I'm never going to do this to myself again.
Right.
And it's silent. That's the weirdest thing about this stuff is time and sound change. So I'll be blaring music, hip hop in my headphones when I'm snowboarding, not when I'm
Right.
trying cases.
Yeah.
But when you hit a jump and you're in the air, it's silent. And when
Silent.
you're about to
You
drop
forget
in,
about the music you're playing. You're
it's
just not.
just the world
Yeah.
just pauses and or speeds up
Right.
depending. And when you're standing at that top of the run and you're about to drop in, and I would do like Vans ones, so you'd have these huge cameras in your face, and it's silent, and you have that whole run to yourself, and everybody's staring at you, and then you drop in, and like time stops and magic happens. And
Right.
by the time you get down, you're like, oh my God, I can't wait to do this again.
Yeah. So how do you connect that silence with like trial work?
You know, it's a lot about mental focus.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot about visualizing what you're going to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm about to get up and do a presentation, I'm thinking about my chapters of my story, my headlines, so to speak. And I'm just trying to get calm and get like breathe and
Right.
get calm. Even just talking about it, I can feel
Yeah.
like I'm getting so excited, you
Right.
know?
Right.
And I've shockingly always done extremely well under pressure.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure you can relate to this.
Mm-hmm.
When you're like, I wouldn't be able to clear a jump, or I wouldn't be able to land a trick and practice over and over and over again. And then I would freaking stomp it
Right.
on my run.
Right.
Some people are the opposite. They got it down. And then once it comes to
Yeah.
the real
So,
deal,
yeah.
but I could always stomp stuff in the run that I couldn't get in.
Yeah. The ones who don't perform well under pressure, in we have a saying in Spanish. I don't know if it's translatable to English, but we say cold chest.
How does
Pecho
that?
frío, pecho frío, cold chest. You
What
know,
does
it's
that
like
mean?
it's like a cold heart. It's like they just like lack the
You crack under pressure.
right, right. So like cold chest. That's like a soccer, football term.
Okay.
Argentinians,
Like when you
Chileans.
have that moment.
Yeah, and you just fail. You just don't do it well,
Yeah,
and you've
my
been
son,
preparing, and
who's 6, just was playing soccer, and he had a breakaway.
yeah,
And I'm like, we're watching, he had a breakaway, and and he missed it, and he was
yeah.
like, you just can feel it, you
Yeah,
know? You're
but
just,
like he's just like he's so young, and these things ultimately.
well, we all have that.
Yeah,
We've
yeah,
all
yeah,
done that, you
yeah.
know, and you're going to fall down. It's
Right,
not like you're going to
right.
stomp every trick.
It's about it's about coming back and do it better the next time,
Right.
and that's what we do all the time. It's like we're trying to practice as much, go to conferences, right? And that takes me to, I mean, we could talk about your transition from snowboarding to trial, and I think that's fascinating, and we can keep talking about that within the
Well,
topics
yours
that we want
too.
to cover. But I would also like to talk about the different conferences that you have gone that have shaped who you are.
Need a trial lawyer who will fight for you? Call Lathrop Law Firm at 760-723-9612 or visit www.lathroplawfirm.com.
Shape who you are. And I am going to do my own disclaimer here. There are so many conferences, and we know so many people out there that every single conference has one specific thing that makes them unique, and we don't want you to look bad with all of your friends that do different conferences. We just want to know your story. What shaped who you are. Because I remember when I became a lawyer and I started watching the Consumer Attorneys of San Diego, CASD, videos, um, presentations. You were always there. You were taking some leadership there. Now,
Right.
fast forward, you're president elect, which congratulations.
Thank you.
That's like a big honor, and I'm very proud. I'm very happy to have you here as a president elect.
Thank you.
So yeah, so I'm sure that from the moment that you start as a lawyer to the moment that you are right now, there are many lawyers, conferences, the workshops that have shaped who you are right now.
Right.
So what is that path that you took? Why don't you give us a little bit?
Right. So I didn't feel, I just didn't really fit in, I felt at first in law school. And I was just bright eyed and bushy tailed and excited, but definitely lost. I would say I was definitely lost until just pretty darn recently, actually, and still finding my way. But if you're a Sex and the City fan, there's Carrie says at one point, she says, I felt like patchouli in a room full of Chanel.
Mm-hmm.
And that is how I felt for a very long time
Okay.
until I clerked for Judge Denton.
Oh,
He was a
nice.
prior plaintiff's lawyer. He's prior
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
past president of Consumer Attorneys of San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
Well known in San Diego, brilliant
Yeah, he
trial
has a
lawyer.
great reputation. I
Yes.
mediated a case with him. The case resolved.
He's
So.
fantastic. He kind of took me under his wing,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't understand why. But if you meet his wife, Cindy Shiak, she's
Yeah.
also a little firecracker. So I was like, oh, well, now I kind of see it in hindsight. But he really took me under his wing, and then I just kind of, I was watching the motions,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone was just. I'd never even been in an office before.
Right.
And I'm here clerking for a judge in chambers. Like, I didn't know the rules of just how to act in a business.
Yeah.
Like, I went from the action sports industry to working in a judge's chambers.
Yeah. In a still very in an industry that still is very hard for women to
Right.
Male-dominated
industry,
yeah.
cutthroat, very, both are very cutthroat.
Mm-hmm.
Cutthroat, you have to have a thick skin. It's gotten a lot better
Right.
since the Me Too movement.
Mm-hmm.
But, I don't, the way, before the Me Too movement, I didn't know that that was just normal in both industries,
Right.
really. So yeah, I kind of, when I saw a plaintiff trial lawyer try a case, who's a well-known, I did not know this at the time, but he was a well-known plaintiff's trial lawyer, and I watched him do an opening and then 776, the first witness, and I was like, that's what I want to do.
Right.
It was a moment. It was a moment in my life where I was like, that's it. That's what I want to do.
That's awesome.
And then after the trial, which took some time, this lawyer got a 8-figure result.
Can you say who that lawyer was?
I'll say it off the record.
Okay. No worries.
And then he took me under his wing, and then other people just took me under their wings in San Diego and outside of San Diego. And then I went to the Trial Lawyers College, and what I do is I just find where I feel the warm and fuzzies.
Yeah.
And if I'm in a room and I don't feel the warm and fuzzies, I don't just automatically run away. But I'm really trying to be cognizant of, is this the right room for me?
Mm-hmm.
You've heard before about, if you're not valued, maybe it's not that you don't have value, it's because you're in the wrong room,
Right.
kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a struggle for me self-confidence-wise because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I still, I feel less like I'm wearing patchouli in a room full of Chanel because I'm a little more Chanel these days.
Okay.
But, that complex is still there.
Right. But so far, I mean, you're a trial lawyer. You have several trials, and we're gonna talk about those, the ones that you want to discuss today, of course. But you opened your firm, right? Are you going to your third year on your own?
Yes.
Okay,
This will be our
third year. So 2022, you opened your firm.
I did.
What's the name of the firm?
Havens Injury Law.
Havens Injury.
Inc.
And okay, and you've been handling personal injury cases, right?
Exclusively.
And going to trial.
Yes.
Co-counseling with other lawyers. Like, what's the type of work that you're doing now with your own firm?
So the short answer is premises liability and auto cases with a little bit of product defect.
Okay.
Cases, product liability. I started off as a car crash lawyer, and I
Right.
was doing exclusively car accidents, working at a firm that had an extremely high volume of car accident cases. And I've realized through all of these teachings that we all know is that I have to really feel the case
Right.
in my heart. And I jumped off 50-foot jumps and gave myself whiplash every single day for a decade, year round. And it's really hard for me to relate to somebody who has a sore neck for a couple months. I get
Right.
for maybe that lifestyle or what they do, that was catastrophic for them.
That's interesting because I have suffered concussions in my life, and sometimes it happens to me that I see these clients.
You're like, suck
Some
it up.
of them, not of course, not all of them. Like some clients that come to ask for help, and you're like, okay, if this guy got injured, I am just like horrible right now, because the amount of injuries and blows to my head that I received when I was a little kid, like, how am I gonna get out of this if this guy is not able to get out of something way lower in terms of impact, forces, etc. But those are a few. There are always, exceptions to the rule. And what I do, and I know that you do too, is now on our own, we control what cases we take and which
Right.
ones we don't. And we need to like the client, like
Right.
think that is someone not only likable, because maybe someone is not likable at the first, interaction, but someone that has a story and that you believe, that you believe that what they are telling you is true. Like basically avoid frivolous lawsuits, right?
Right. However, there's a huge disclaimer there. I'm somebody who just likes everyone,
Yeah.
and for whatever reason, I have not proven myself to be the best judge of character
Right.
when it comes to that. And I think I just have a big heart, and it's hard. I
Mm.
don't lie, I don't cheat,
Right.
and so it's hard for me to like comprehend somebody that would or could.
Right.
And I can't tell you how many times
Mhm.
I have liked a client, I have liked their story, even though. Maybe in hindsight, definitely in hindsight, the facts didn't quite align, but I just felt the warm and
You just, it's like a
fuzzies.
romantic type of
Yeah,
feeling,
and
like
and
you
I
want to
I
help.
try to be cognizant of that. And in
Yeah.
a trial I have coming up, our mediator, who's a judge I love and respect, have known for many years when she was on the bench, said, "I think you're too close to your client in this case." And I
Right.
had to take a step back and say, "Am I overvaluing this case because I like the client?" I don't think that's the case in this case. She was a defense attorney, and she gets that it's about what a jury sees. But it's really difficult. It's still something I struggle with
Yeah.
about how I decide to take a case or not take a case. And I don't know the answer to that question.
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't know if anybody knows the answer to the question,
Right.
really.
It's a gut feeling sometimes, it's is this person telling me the truth or no? But ultimately, you end up finding out if you're right or wrong.
Well,
So I think
sometimes
you
they're
can put.
not. Sometimes I would say most often, or maybe I just try to see the best in
Right.
people. I would say most often when this happens, that person truly believes that whatever happened, and they truly believe whatever is going on in their life is happening and that it was caused by the accident.
Yeah.
And that gets compounded by so many things in life.
Right.
And it's all about your perception. And so we have to be the objective people saying, I get that it's real for her and this is her experience, but is that
The reality.
right? She's looking at through her lens. And if we take 10 steps backwards and look at it, and that's when you pick up the phone and call a friend.
Right.
Or I send the evidence to somebody else, or I look at it and I have somebody give an objective look. Am I being jaded? I really like this client. I can't tell you how many times I've really liked a client and been burned, and I might still like that client.
Right.
I just overlooked things because of
No.
that.
Yeah. We could all learn a little bit of, judge character better, and we would save ourselves a lot of time, money, and like headaches, right?
And to be fair, that's kind of the luxury about coming into cases later on.
Right.
Because for most of my career up until now, majority of my cases were coming in within days of the incident happening. So you might have this horrible crash and think, oh, this is going to be a huge case. It was a commercial vehicle, they're in the ER, there's like blood and scars, and then, that it's uninsured and the guy's fine, which is fantastic in 3 months. Great client, but whatever. And conversely, you might have the fender bender that you see nothing in, and then they turn out to be a wonderful client who gets surgery. So it's really difficult early on in the case to evaluate that.
Yeah.
When you come into a case a year or so later, the pieces have been kind of laid, and you've got some evidence, objective evidence, to be able to meet that client and think, okay, well, does this really all match up? But at the same time, you have the case that's already been worked up, maybe not the way you would have wanted it worked up.
Right. That's a low side. So now you're saying I'm coming late in the case because you're like an attorney that gets hired by other lawyers to
Or
come
brought in.
or brought in, right? To try the case, right? Because that's what you like
Right.
to do. So
Or essentially get it ready for trial with the anticipation that it's going to trial. But they often don't
Right.
go to trial.
So to
Unfortunately, but fortunately, you have to do what's in the best interest of the client.
right. So let's say that you meet a Sarah Havens in 2024, 2025, that is just starting as a lawyer and wants to be where you are right now. and you want her to make the best decisions, what are the things that you would tell that Sarah Havens, or let's think about maybe a daughter, someone that is coming after you. What are the things that you would tell that person? This is how you do it. This is where you go. This is who you have to surround yourself with. These are the workshops you should do. What would be that advice that you would give this person?
Well, the first thing I would tell them, which coming from the action sports industry, hopefully this person isn't coming from that background, but if they're like me, they have the spunk and have, is that hosted bar does not mean open bar.
Okay.
Took me a little too long to learn that lesson. But you come from, when you're a snowboarder living on couches and
Right.
somebody has a hosted bar, that's an open bar.
Okay.
What's the point of that bar?
That advice, that
It's
tip
all you
goes,
can drink.
That goes straight to young Sarah Havens. Huh?
Yes,
Okay.
right? And that's why I'm sober.
Okay.
So that would be my first advice, is to just maintain your composure 24/7. And if she's a woman, I would say that even more so. You're held under a larger microscope. And I think that when men maybe overindulge a little bit, it's funny. You post about it on social media. You laugh about drinking whiskey and falling asleep in the middle of a restaurant. And that's funny if you're a man. It's not funny if you're a woman. And that sucks, but also maybe we shouldn't all be
Sounds
posting on.
unfair.
It's, I think none of us as plaintiff lawyers, as the leaders in our community, should be in public acting that way. It doesn't give us a good name.
Agreed.
We're supposed to be leaders. We're supposed to, be the role models at all times. And I don't think that looks good for our industry. However, there's definitely, what's the name of it? It's different for women. They're looked at differently.
Right. So okay. So first tip would be behave. Okay. The second would be let's talk
Maybe
about
only have one
from
or
the
none.
trial perspective, right?
so-
Because things have changed. When you were a younger lawyer, there was this the ranch, and now the ranch are two places, and we don't want to get into the politics involved, but there are certain things that young lawyers could do to
Right.
improve their game.
Right. So here would be my advice there. Is to definitely be out there, trying all the things, getting on your feet, learning from the best, without a doubt. But take it all with a grain of salt. This is an art, not a science.
Right.
And you hear a lot, you can't be Jerry Fence, you can't be this person. And that's true, but I see a lot of, I don't want to say younger attorneys, even just attorneys that they're often not younger, they're often older. I see them really drinking Kool-Aid of a particular brand. I don't want to say brand, and I could
Right.
restate this shorter, because I think this is very important.
Yeah.
That I'm seeing this a lot, is that whatever it be, whatever section, there's this kind of cult-like thing to it, and people are becoming extremely blinded to
copy other lawyers, what they do, what they teach.
but also I can't really explain it. It's like, oh, it's this
Like, this is the way it's done. You do it only this
but
way.
it's
or-
also this not celebrityality of it. What do you say, celebrityality of it? But this oh, this is this person and this
like
is
a
this
devotion, like a type of devotion for certain people.
person.
That
I saw this at Jerry Spence at the ranch, right?
Okay.
And Jerry Spence is a good lawyer. There's no doubt that Jerry Spence is a good lawyer, and he's done a tremendous amount for what we do
Right.
and how great lawyers are today. And he's a mentor to me and many people. But when I see people just have this cult-like, and I see this with Nick, I see this
With Nick
Raleigh.
Raleigh.
I see this with people around Nick. And I'm not saying don't learn from these people. I'm just saying they're humans. They're people. They fell down. They're not perfect. Not everything they say is gospel and something you should practice. This might resonate with me. This might not. But, for God's sake, treat them like people.
Yeah.
Don't treat them like God.
I guess the insight behind that, it's something that I think the same guys are gonna tell you. The same, the Nick Rowleys, the Jerry Spence, all these great trial lawyers will tell you is be yourself and come up with something that is your own,
which is hard to do when you don't really
potion.
know what you're doing. So we all plagiarize each other, right? And we should.
Right.
You don't reinvent a wheel. If Keith Mitnick is doing something that's genius,
Yeah.
then we all do that, and we should. I guess maybe it look. There's a lot of egos in our industry. There's a lot of egos when we go to conferences,
Right.
and that's the way our industry is. I get it. And then you need that to be a good trialer. You do. You have to captivate the room, right? You have to have that, captivation where people are looking up to you, like with this, almost godlike presence.
Right.
And that is needed to be able to have the great success that these greats have. I think maybe because I come from LA and I came from growing up with like the Olsen twins and Paris Hilton and, Nicole Richie and just all these celebrities all over the place. And obviously, being a celebrity in the 80s and 90s is a lot different than whatever's going on in LA now. I think maybe because I grew up around that so much, maybe that's why I have this. It gives me an icky feeling. It turns me off to this industry when I see it.
Okay. So it's basically.
So my advice, going back to that.
Yeah.
So my first piece of advice would be don't, a hosted bar isn't an open.
Okay, behave. So
My second piece of advice is to understand that these people, these greats, are people that have worked really hard, that have tried this, that have a lot of experience and have a lot to say, but they're not the end all and be all of what you're supposed to be doing. If something works, if you feel it's great, then great. Try it. Try it, and if it doesn't feel right, or you try it in court and you fall on your head, then maybe it's just not for you. You could pick and choose, and there's something great about all the things that are being taught.
Right.
And just kind of feed it all in, but don't follow one school of thought and say, this is the only way I'm doing it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and then like conferences out there, you can reach out to you, Sarah, to me, and ask like what are the things that we like to do, because we're gonna give some names.
Number 3 is get up whenever you can. Go to working groups, make your own working groups. Get like 5-10 friends together in round table cases and get up and practice
get
your
on your
opening.
feet.
You have to get up and practice. Take communication skills, read communication books. All of those things, getting up, presenting. You can be the most brilliant lawyer in the world and have the most brilliant ideas, but if you can't communicate them effectively, then they'll never see the light of day.
Right. And on paper, things are never the same than done, right?
Then
when
maybe
you're standing
be
on
a
your
motion
feet.
writer. Maybe
Right.
MSJs are your jam.
Yeah. So, real quick, because we're running out of time, but you're we've been saying this throughout the whole episode, but you're a president-elect for Consumer Attorneys of San Diego. What is this about, like president-elect? Explain to me, because I know there is a president now, and we know you're gonna be the president like a year before you become a president, right? So how does it work?
No, that's not how it works.
Okay, how it is?
It's actually kind of simple. So I've been on the board since 2016.
Okay.
And this is how all these boards work, somewhat
Right.
differently. But essentially, I was voted president-elect, and that was my year right now as president-elect.
Yeah.
So I will be president in January.
Okay, so basically they vote you to be a president-elect a year before you become a president.
Right.
Right?
But you go up a track in the executive committee.
Right.
So I've been an officer on the executive committee, I don't know, 4 years maybe.
Okay. And Consumer Attorneys of San Diego, why don't you tell people? Because, we know what it is.
Right.
But not everybody who's listening right now knows
Right.
what Consumer Attorneys of San Diego does.
Right.
And,
Thank you.
You know?
So in every community around the country, there are local plaintiff trial lawyer groups. AAJ, American Association for Justice, is kind of like the national one, and they have conferences. In California, we have CAOC, Consumer Attorneys of California,
Right.
and they are our voice up in Sacramento. AAJ is our voice up in Washington. So as much as anybody can do to support those two organizations is helpful. And then we are not a political organization, but we are Consumer Attorneys of San Diego. So Consumer Attorneys, Trial Lawyers Association, Associations for Justice. We used to all be Trial Lawyers Associations.
Right.
But during the tort reform era, they didn't like the term trial lawyer, so now we have separate names.
Right.
So,
And
long story short, it's the Plaintiffs Trial Lawyers Association in San Diego.
right. And basically, we only represent people against big corporations. We work on a contingency for the most part. There may
So
be
the
some
requirement,
exceptions there.
the requirement for membership is that you, we just looked at this with the member, that you, I'd have to look at it exactly, but none of that is part of membership. To be a member, you must not represent defendants. And then there's some specific language, I think, about like I'd have to look at the exact language. But you have to qualify as a member. And the main qualification as a member, and sometimes this is audited in all the other organizations, is that you represent individuals against governmental entities such as corporations, governmental entities, insurance companies.
Yeah.
So if you represent an insurance company in any capacity, that's not going to pass the test.
So to me, CASD was the first association I joined, and it makes you become part of this family, right?
That's what we want.
Right.
And that's what I felt when I first joined. So that lawyer who I saw try the case, when I reached out to him right afterwards, and he immediately was very helpful and answered my 15 pages of questions that I had over several shots of whiskey, because that was then. But he immediately, as soon as we connected, said, I just paid your registration. You're now a member of CASD. And I thought, I have no idea what CASD is. And I Googled it, because we actually did have the internet then. And there was a mixer that night. I went, I met some people, and the rest was history. I found my home at that point. I found my niche. I found my people.
That's awesome. You know how I found out that CASD existed? Well, I got invited by my former boss to a speech given by Judge Medell on evidence.
Yes.
And that was
I was probably there.
Yeah, you're probably there. And
I think
it was probably it was done on right next to
Harbor,
the marina.
Yes.
Yeah,
I put that one on.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so that was my first CASD event, and then I became a part of. I was part of CASD even before becoming a lawyer.
That makes me really happy, because that's what we want. Our slogan is never stand alone.
Right.
And many people before me would not have had success in their career without the community of CISD. I wouldn't be here without the community of CISD. And things have changed in this new world post 2016, post-COVID, post-pandemic, where it's harder to reach members and get them to collaborate. So we're really working hard to make sure that with all these, the way the world has changed, we can still provide that community and that never stand alone to members. So any advice is well taken.
Yeah, no, I think you guys are doing a great job, and I am looking very much forward to get more and more involved as time goes by as well.
Yay.
So,
I will take you up on that, you know.
Yeah, let's do it. So yeah, well, I guess with this we'll wrap up because we're running out of time.
Yes.
So Sarah, it was. I feel like we could be talking forever about different things. You know.
Yes.
So maybe we'll have to repeat another episode and address other topics. If you're listening this and you want to reach out, feel free to reach out. Where they can find you, Sarah? What are your what's your information?
My direct email is Sarah, SARAH, at Havens Injury Law, all one word. You can go to my website, Havens Injury Law. My Havens is HAVENS. That S gets missed, but you can Google me.
It's like
if you Google Sarah Havens, the snowboarder, though, you won't find me. I was Sarah Mose. That was
really?
That was my birth name.
I think I saw that.
My mother hates the word maiden, so
it's heaven without the e, right? Havens,
but it's Haven.
But with an s at the end, like
so,
heavens.
Right. So we call our cabin the Havens Hideaway.
Okay.
The Havens Haven. No, we actually call it the Havens Haven. Yeah. So the Havens Haven.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I know you're very busy, so with this
let's go learn some stuff.
Awesome.